Some Greek mythology, you know? It's good to study Greek mythology. Hello. I nearly brought my jacket out today, which would have been a terrible, terrible mistake because it's really, really warm. I'm in Regent's Park. I'm in fact, this cross that you can see here is the centre of the inner circle of Regent's Park. I don't know if you've ever really had a good look at the structure of Regent's Park, but it's sort of laid out in kind of like a story. What it does is it reminds us very clearly that the structures that we take for granted in English society were in fact inspired by structures from the ancient world. It has a way of protecting itself.
In Regent's Park, you have the inner circle, a perfect shape reflecting perfect order. Then there's the outer circle, which you can see is really struggling to be a circle at all, because in the outer circle, there are so many more interested egos trying to mould society to their own wants and own needs that a consensus has to be reached. A democratic consensus is always the imperfect result, a compromise. But then, of course, you have everything outside of the outer circle, and that's where chaos reigns and good luck trying to mould it into any functional shape. Then there's the higher order of the design, the experience of the average citizen of England as they walk through it. They won't realise, but as they walk, they are simulating the path to enlightenment. They come from the chaos outside and are accepted into the outer circle, and as their journey continues, they graduate to the inner circle and then along a path to an altar for a ritual with Greek gods celebrating nature. Nature as the initial spark of everything, the generator of all things.
This is when the structure of ancient mystery schools will actually start reminding you of England, because the real message here, if you really think about it, is that you're not allowed to jump the queue. You are supposed to graduate from one layer to the next. You're not supposed to go from the obscurity of total chaos outside straight into the middle of the inner circle. And that is exactly what's happened with one of our oldest, most strategic enemies, China. It's less like out of the frying pan into the fire, and a lot more like from outside the kitchen where the bins are straight into the master bedroom, which is rude, especially if you don't wipe your feet. It's down here somewhere, and now it's raining. That is the current Chinese embassy at Portland Place, but they want to relocate. They've actually secured themselves a rather sensitive piece of real estate out at the Tower of London, so with any luck, the weather's going to get slightly better. And before we go to the Tower, we do have some unfinished business in town. There is no number on this building, so you're just going to have to trust me that that is number 33 Farm Street, which is an old telephone exchange. The address is letting us know that there's a tunnel exit here, right? We know that now. And this very dark corridor has sort of a menacing sound. Dude, there's a little pub on the side, and then this entrance down into the car park of the telephone exchange, quite a secure exit. And I'm pretty sure that that is the exit for what we would call the inner circle, as in bulletproof limousines. Pretty sure. And if I can work this stuff out, then China definitely can, and probably did many, many years ago, and Russia, and pretty much any other interested group that might want to be interested in what the hell they're doing underground here. It's time to go to grubby old Vauxhall. Do you remember that building? I made a film about it. Look at our little friend. Oh. Yeah, the new American Embassy. Of course, it's number 33, 9 Elms Lane. And I kind of understand now why it's number 33, right? Because it's not just because it's part of London's open air Illuminati theme park. It is in fact it's part of the alternative tunnel network. I understand that now, and I understand some other things now. Their modus operandi in terms of the steps that they took, sort of mentally and physically, and it's not hard to work a few things out. Let's go on our, cheers dude, let's go on our own path of enlightenment and make a few logical deductions.
I got my mate Claude to write me an app that displays the locations of all the listed telephone exchanges in London. And I started to notice some things. There are 178 telephone exchanges, and most of them are an old building with subterranean levels so they can put the equipment close to the underground cables. The equipment generates a fair amount of heat, so generally they have visible and audible ventilation to the surface. All of them are doing very ordinary things for London's telecommunications system. When you make a phone call, it'll probably end up travelling through one of these tunnels. The telephone exchanges all look very ordinary and run down, but some of them, in particular locations, have extra duties that are more spooky in nature. It's pretty clear to me now that the main tunnels are built between telephone exchanges, and that means that the modern extension of the Whitehall tunnels going south must be to 9 Elms telephone exchange. And if you suppose that, then you can suppose this. The tunnel actually first runs to this building.
The old MI5 training school. They used to have some pretty serious entrances on here. In fact, they had some serious entrances and then they turned them into extremely serious entrances. Nowadays, this thing's been sold off. But if the main tunnel actually comes down underneath this one, it kind of bypasses the MI Flopsit building over there, which means there must be some kind of other tunnel that goes from the main tunnel like over to MI Flopsit. And of course there is. It's called the Victoria Line. The Victoria Line goes straight under here, Pimlico to Vauxhall, and Victoria Line is kind of that side of the bridge. I imagine when they dug it, they had to build some reinforcements for the bridge. Very easy to build a personnel tunnel. Extremely easy. If you look where the tunnel goes, of course it goes straight next to the new American Embassy, and then it continues south, and a viewer actually tipped me off that the tunnel continues south, and he said that it goes off towards Clapham Common, but he wasn't aware if there was anything underneath Clapham Common. But of course there is. It turns out it's the TfL deep level bunker at South Clapham. There is also a telephone exchange down in South Clapham as well, which looks like to me another one of those that has, let's say, a secure exit for bulletproof limousines. These telephone exchange buildings, though, they are really quite important. They are critical infrastructure. Well, now China basically has access to one of these sensitive telephone exchanges. The government let a crucial piece of infrastructure slip into the hands of one of our existential enemies. And apparently it was an accident. In politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can be sure it was planned that way. Franklin D. Roosevelt. And I'm now going to go to Tower Hill. This is a part of London's old city wall. I'm getting wet. It means that anything outside of here is not technically in London itself, but outside, a part of Greater London. And they called the area out here, when the city was surrounded by a wall, the East End. And that's why if you go to the other side of the square mile and you go outside the western boundary, you will find like Covent Garden, which is part of the West End. And traditionally, that area out there, scummy, dangerous as hell. And the main reason being is that the law actually finished here. So it was a lawless area. Eventually, somebody built something here, this big castle, which should confuse a lot of people. I'm going to get a vantage point and maybe hide from this rain. This should be pretty confusing for tourists. This castle is called the White Tower, which I think is a bit of an edgy name nowadays, isn't it? But they do call it, it's got like a stage name, which is the Tower of London. However, there are no royal palaces in actual London. London itself has been a completely non-royal area. They've had a ban on the royal family for so long that the agreement between them says time immemorial. So they couldn't build that castle in London, so they built it just outside of London. So although people think this is the Tower of London, it is in fact the Tower of Tower Hamlets. And it is Tower Hamlets, which is this area here, that we're here to spy on. And because this was such a prominent place with a royal castle here and a Docklands and all of that, the royal family, long ago, back in the 1500s, Elizabeth I decided to spend some money around here.
Elizabeth I used to hang out here, and in 1560 purchased the land of a former abbey and mansion to build England's first large-scale food base. In 1809, when George III was mad and blind, they built a royal mint here and decided to print money. And that became all the rage around the world, so these guys are real trendsetters. Then the Royal Mint became as royal as Federal Express is federal. And they ran away to find cheaper accommodation. It was redeveloped into flats, and then in 2018, apparently whilst nobody was looking, it was purchased by the Chinese government. And it's become a serious national security risk, to the point where the government have triggered protective measures and seized control of the building plans. Somebody was asleep at the wheel. If Elizabeth I was around today, you can imagine what would happen to the person who let a strategic chunk of sovereign territory slip into the hands of our most existential enemy. And on the doorstep of a royal palace, never mind the technological stuff going on under the ground that makes this even more serious. I wonder what John Dee would have made of all this.
This is the royal barge. This is King Charles's boat.
Okay.
But it's pretty rubbish, isn't it? You know, pretty boring. If you look inside, look, it's very bare. They probably have to sit on the floor when they're visiting. We've seen many of them before. It's one of these old BT telephone exchange buildings. And this thing is not ordinary. Oh my God, the noise is coming back. That thing is not ordinary because the site of the former Royal Mint was actually used as part of it was used as a Barclays live trading floor. And that means that the very infrastructure of the UK stock market was essentially piped into this building and then into the site of the Royal Mint over there, which is kind of awkward. It essentially means that there are live sockets, raw live sockets from the main structure of our financial system. So it's pretty awkward, really. London's financial system has been infiltrated by an existential enemy. It was done willingly by an individual. Will we ever find out who messed up? Time will tell.